The great hall of the interstellar summit stretched far beyond what any human eyes had seen before. A dome of crystal and silver metal covered the chamber, and thousands of lights shimmered like stars in the ceiling. Delegates from 100 worlds filled the seats, scaled, feathered, furred, and armored. Some whispered through mechanical translators, others spoke in musical tones or glowing patterns. At the far end of the hall stood the grand throne platform where the most important leaders of the galaxy sat. Among them was a figure who drew more attention than anyone else, Princess Liara of the Ceranthian Empire. She was tall, elegant, and radiant, with a crown of silver lines that glowed faintly around her head. Her violet eyes observed every detail, sharp yet calm. Her empire was one of the oldest and most powerful civilizations in known space, and somewhere near the front row of human representatives stood Ethan Ward, a young diplomat chosen to speak for Earth. He wore a plain dark suit, nothing flashy, unlike the armored robes of other races. Humans had only joined galactic politics a short time ago, and many still saw them as newcomers who had much to prove. Ethan felt the weight of 1,000 alien eyes on him. It was not easy for a single human to stand in a hall full of beings who had traveled the stars long before Earth had discovered fire. Still, he stood tall. He reminded himself why he was here. Humanity had struggled for centuries, had fought wars, had survived disasters, and had finally reached the stars. They might be new, but they were strong. The summit began with the usual speeches. Leaders argued about trade rights, border disputes, and peace treaties. Ethan listened carefully, ready to speak when the time came. Then, suddenly, silence fell. Princess Liara had risen from her seat. Her presence alone commanded respect. Even the loudest alien nobles hushed as she stepped forward. She looked across the hall and her gaze fell on Ethan. For a moment he thought he was mistaken. Why would a royal leader of such status look directly at a human diplomat from a small young world? But she did not just look at him. She spoke. Her voice was clear, carried by translators into every ear in the hall. "Human," she said, "are you married or single?" The hall froze. For 3 long seconds no one moved. Then came the murmurs. Whispers spread like fire. Some aliens laughed, others gasped, and a few hissed in disapproval. A question so direct, so personal, was unheard of in such a formal gathering. Ethan blinked. His heart skipped. He could not have misheard it. Of all the things she could have asked, about Earth's alliances, its resources, its technology, she asked about him. Is this some kind of trick? He wondered silently. He saw his fellow human delegates looking at him nervously, unsure what to do. The alien nobles leaned forward with interest. Even the mechanical ambassadors tilted their heads. Ethan knew he had to answer. To stay silent would be seen as weakness. To refuse would be seen as insult. He felt the sweat on his palms, but he kept his voice calm. "I am single, Your Highness," he said. The words echoed through the hall. More whispers, more laughter. Some delegates shook their heads. A reptilian noble leaned to another and hissed. Typical of a young race, unbound, unstable. But others seemed curious. A bird-like elder tilted her head and muttered, "Freedom, choice, interesting." Princess Liara's expression remained unreadable. She gave the faintest nod and sat back down as though nothing unusual had happened. The summit continued, but the energy in the room had shifted. Ethan's mind raced. He kept his face calm, but inside questions stormed. Why had she asked that? Was it a cultural test? A hidden insult? Or something else entirely? When the session ended, Ethan walked out with his small human team. The corridors of the summit station were wide enough for creatures 10 times his size. Hollow banners floated in the air, glowing with symbols of unity. Yet everywhere he went, alien eyes followed him, whispering about the strange moment. One of his aides, a young woman named Carla, caught up with him. What just happened in there? Why would she ask something like that? Ethan shook his head. I don't know, but it wasn't random. That question meant something to her people. We need to find out what. As they walked, a familiar voice called out. It was Zeroth, a tall insectoid delegate from a minor trade world who had always been friendly to humans. His mandibles clicked as he approached. "You should be careful, human," Zeroth said. "The princess does not speak without reason. In her culture, asking about marriage is no small matter. It is about loyalty, about strength, about whether one can build ties that last." "So my answer made us look weak?" Ethan asked. Zeroth tilted his head. "To some, yes, to others, no. A single man is seen as free, unchained. That can be dangerous or powerful. You will see." Ethan thanked him and walked on, but the weight of the moment pressed on him. He had not just answered for himself. He had answered for humanity. Every word mattered here. That night in his quarters, Ethan stared out the window of the station. Stars glittered beyond the transparent walls. Ships moved like silent shadows in the distance. His reflection stared back at him. One man, carrying the image of an entire world. "Why me?" he thought. "Why ask me that question?" The sound of his door chime interrupted his thoughts. When it opened, a messenger stood there, a tall robed attendant from the Ceranthian delegation. "The princess requests your presence," the messenger said. Ethan's heart skipped again. He took a slow breath, nodded, and followed. The corridors twisted like rivers of glass and light, leading him deeper into the Ceranthian quarters. Guards in silver armor stood at every door. Finally, he entered a chamber filled with soft blue light, fragrant air, and strange, living sculptures that glowed like coral. There she was, Princess Liara. She stood near the center, hands folded, eyes glowing faintly violet. She did not look surprised to see him. In fact, it felt as though she had known he would come all along. "Human," she said softly. "You answered my question, but do you know why I asked it?" Ethan straightened his back. "I believe not, Your Highness, but I would like to understand." She studied him for a long moment. Then she gave a faint smile. "Good," she said. "Because everything that follows will depend on whether you truly wish to understand." And with those words, Ethan knew his journey had only begun. The next day began with a tension that hung heavy in the air of the interstellar summit. News of Princess Liara's announcement had spread across the council halls. Every delegate now whispered about the same thing: the human diplomat who had been chosen to face the ceremonial trials. No outsider had ever been invited to such a challenge. The trials were ancient Ceranthian traditions, meant to test whether one was worthy of alliance, partnership, or even leadership. To most alien races, they were sacred. To humans, they were a mystery wrapped in danger. Ethan Ward stood in his quarters, fastening the plain collar of his uniform. Carla and Marcus hovered nearby, both nervous. "This is insane," Marcus muttered. "You're a diplomat, not a gladiator. These trials could kill you." Ethan gave a small smile, though his stomach twisted inside. If humanity wants a seat at the table, we can't keep saying we're too new, too weak, too unready. Someone has to step up. Carla looked at him, worry in her eyes. "You're not just stepping up for yourself, Ethan. You're carrying Earth on your shoulders." He nodded. He knew it. That was why he couldn't back down. The ceremonial chamber was unlike anything Ethan had ever seen. It was vast, circular, and alive with alien design. Columns of crystal reached toward the ceiling, pulsing faintly as if breathing. Strange carvings spiraled across the walls, glowing whenever voices echoed inside. Delegates from every world gathered in the balconies above, their faces and forms lit by the glow of the chamber, all eyes fixed on the single figure in the center, Ethan. At the far side stood Princess Liara, dressed in ceremonial robes that shimmered like flowing water. Her violet eyes never left him. She raised her hand, and silence fell. Today, the human stands where no outsider has stood before. He will face the trials of wit, courage, and truth. If he succeeds, humanity will rise as a people worthy of trust. If he fails, humanity will be remembered as weak, and Earth will have no voice in this council again. A murmur rippled through the balconies. Ethan felt his chest tighten. but he steadied his breath. Liara gestured, and the first trial began. They do. Trial of wit. The floor beneath Ethan shifted, rearranging into a massive grid of glowing tiles. Symbols appeared across them, strange alien patterns, half mathematical, half artistic. A voice filled the chamber, deep and resonant. To pass the first trial, the challenger must cross the path of wisdom. Step wrongly, and the ground will fall. Ethan's eyes widened as sections of the floor shimmered, revealing bottomless drops beneath. It was a puzzle, one that required knowledge of Ceranthian symbols. He had studied alien languages, but not enough to understand this fully. From the balcony, whispers rose. The human will fail. He cannot know our codes. Ethan closed his eyes for a moment, then smiled faintly. Maybe I don't need to know everything. Maybe I just need to see patterns. He crouched, studying the tiles. Slowly he realized that the symbols repeated in sequences, like music, like rhythm. Humans were good at spotting rhythm, good at making leaps of logic where others saw confusion. Step by step, he moved across the grid, trusting his instincts, trusting the human ability to guess where logic ended and creativity began. Gasps filled the chamber as he reached the final tile safely. The human passed, one alien whispered in disbelief. He solved it without knowing the code. Liara's faint smile was the only sign of her approval, the trial of courage. The chamber shifted again. The grid vanished, replaced by a vast arena filled with shifting illusions. From the shadows emerged towering beasts, creatures of light and sound designed to mimic ancient Ceranthian predators. Their glowing eyes fixed on Ethan, and their roars shook the chamber. The challenger must face fear, the voice declared. Only courage can lead him forward. Ethan felt his heartbeat pound in his chest. These illusions were so real, his body reacted as if they could tear him apart. The first beast lunged, its fangs glinting. Every instinct screamed at him to run. But he forced himself to stand his ground. He remembered Liara's words. Fear guides you, but it does not control you. When the beast lunged again, Ethan sidestepped at the last moment, rolling across the floor. The illusion crashed into the wall, vanishing in sparks of light. Another creature charged, but this time Ethan ran toward it, not away. He shouted, swinging his arm as if to strike, and the beast dissolved. The illusions fed on fear. The less he feared them, the weaker they became. One by one he faced them. His legs shook, his breath came hard, but he did not yield. And finally the last beast vanished, leaving the chamber silent once more. From the balconies came thunderous noise, some cheers, some cries of anger. But none could deny what they had seen, the trial of truth. The chamber darkened until only Ethan and Liara remained in the center, bathed in pale light. The final trial is truth, the voice declared. The challenger must speak without lies. His heart will be judged. A crystal orb rose between them, glowing softly. Liara stepped closer, her eyes fixed on his. Human, she said, her voice low but carrying through the chamber. Why? Did you come to the stars? What does your kind truly seek? Ethan swallowed. The question struck deep. He thought about Earth, the wars, the struggles, the endless desire to survive. He thought about the billions of humans who had never left their home but dreamed of more. We came because we refused to stay still, he said. His voice trembled, but it grew stronger with each word. We came because we have always reached for what is beyond us, first fire, then the sea, then the sky. Then, and now the stars. We seek not conquest, not chains, but the chance to live, to grow, to choose our future. The orb glowed brighter, pulsing with his words. Liara's eyes widened slightly, though her face remained calm. Do you fear failure? She asked. Yes, Ethan admitted. Every step. But fear doesn't stop us. It makes us fight harder. The orb blazed with white light. The chamber shook as the trial ended. The voice declared, The human has spoken truth. Gasps and cries filled the hall. Some shouted in anger, others in awe. The Ceranthian guards struck their staffs against the ground in acknowledgement. Princess Liara stepped forward, her robe flowing like liquid silver. "The trials are complete," she said, her voice echoing across the chamber. "The human has proven wit, courage, and truth. Let the council remember this day." As the chamber emptied, Ethan stood in the center, his chest still heaving. He had survived. Somehow he had passed all 3 trials. Liara approached him, her gaze unreadable. "You surprised them," she said softly. "You surprised me." Ethan managed a tired smile. "I've been told that's what humans do best." For the first time, her faint smile grew into something warmer. "Perhaps your answer in the hall was not weakness after all. Perhaps being unbound is your greatest strength." Ethan bowed slightly. "Or maybe it just means we're stubborn." Her laugh, quiet but genuine, echoed in the chamber. But even as victory settled over him, Ethan felt the weight of new challenges ahead. He could see the anger in the eyes of some delegates, the fear in others. Passing the trials had not ended the struggle. It had only begun a new one. And somewhere deep inside, he wondered, had Princess Liara asked him that strange question not just for politics, but for something more personal? As he left the chamber, the echoes of her voice stayed with him. "Human, are you married or single?" Now it felt less like a test and more like a mystery he had yet to solve. The chamber glowed with soft light as Ethan stood before Princess Liara. Her eyes, glowing faintly violet, studied him with calm patience. She looked less like a ruler testing a diplomat and more like a teacher waiting for a student's answer. "I asked you a simple question," she said, her voice steady. "But it is not simple at all in my culture." Ethan nodded slowly. He wanted to ask many things, but he stayed quiet. He had learned that sometimes silence was more powerful than words. Liara turned, walking past the glowing sculptures that decorated the room. They pulsed with gentle light as if alive. "On my world," she continued, "to ask if someone is married or single is to ask, where do you stand? Whom do you serve? What bonds hold you? And what bonds do you refuse?" Ethan's mind raced. In human society, marriage was personal. It was about family, love, and sometimes duty. But here, it meant politics, loyalty, stability. "You stood before the galaxy," she said, "and declared yourself unbound. Some will see this as weakness. They will whisper that humans have no lasting ties, that your people cannot be trusted to hold alliances. But others will see freedom. They will see strength and independence." Ethan took a breath. "Then, my answer divided the council." Liara faced him again, her expression softened slightly. "Yes, and that was my intention." Ethan blinked. "Your intention? You wanted this reaction?" Her faint smile revealed nothing and everything at once. "Every word spoken in that hall shifts power. You may think yourself small, but your answer moved the balance. Now, the galaxy must decide what humans truly are." Later, back in his quarters, Ethan sat with his team. Carla paced the room, nervous. "So let me get this straight. She put you on the spot in front of everyone, and now half the summit thinks we're unstable. And the other half thinks we're, what, mysterious?" "Something like that," Ethan admitted. He leaned back, rubbing his forehead. "She said it wasn't about me. It was about humanity, about how we're seen." Another aide, Marcus, frowned. "That's dangerous. We're new here. We don't want to be seen as a threat, but we also don't want to look weak." Ethan nodded. "Exactly. And now, we're both." The room fell silent. Outside, ships glided past the windows of the station, their lights like fireflies in the dark. The next day, the summit resumed. Ethan walked into the great hall knowing that every alien present would see him differently now. He felt their eyes on him, measuring him, questioning him. When the debates began, Ethan noticed something new. Delegates who had ignored humans before now leaned closer when he spoke. Some even asked his opinion on trade or border issues. They weren't interested in the topics themselves. They were interested in him. After the session, Zeroth, the insectoid delegate, walked beside him. "You have become a puzzle," Zeroth said. "And puzzles are dangerous in politics. Some will want to solve you. Some will want to break you." Ethan gave a tired smile. "Thanks for the encouragement." Zeroth's mandibles clicked, which Ethan had learned was a laugh. "You may not see it yet, human, but your answer gave you power. Use it well, or others will use it for you." That evening, Ethan received another message. He was invited to a private discussion, not with the princess this time, but with a group of alien nobles. They wanted to speak with him alone. He entered a chamber lined with banners of many colors. 4 nobles waited, each from a different species. A scaled diplomat with golden eyes spoke first. "Human, Ethan," the noble said. "Your kind intrigues us. You are not bound by ancient traditions. You are not tied to rigid codes. Tell us, what does humanity value above all?" Ethan paused. He thought carefully. He knew his words would be carried far. "We value choice," he said. "The freedom to build our own path, to succeed or fail by our own will." The nobles exchanged looks. Some seemed impressed. Others looked doubtful. The feathered noble leaned closer. "Freedom is dangerous. It leads to chaos. How can we trust a people who serve no higher chain?" Ethan's jaw tightened. He wanted to answer sharply, but he remembered Liara's words. Every word mattered, so he spoke calmly. "Because when humans choose loyalty, it is not forced, it is not demanded, it is given freely, and that makes it stronger than chains." The room grew quiet. Then, slowly, the scaled noble nodded. "Interesting, very interesting." When Ethan returned to his quarters, he found another message waiting. This one bore the seal of the Saranthian Empire. The princess wanted to see him, again. He entered her chamber once more. Liara stood by the window, staring out into the sea of stars. "The council talks about you," she said without turning. "Some call you dangerous, others call you bold. Do you know what I call you?" Ethan shook his head. "What?" She turned, her violet eyes glowing brighter in the dim light. "A test. You are the test I placed before them. Whether they admit it or not, they must now decide, is humanity a partner, a rival, or a threat?" Ethan crossed his arms. "And what do you think?" Liara walked closer, her presence calm yet powerful. "I think you have surprised me. Most would have stumbled. You stood firm. You answered without fear." Ethan allowed himself a small smile. "To be honest, I was terrified." Her faint laugh echoed softly. "That is what makes you dangerous. Fear guides you, but it does not control you." For a moment, silence hung between them. Ethan felt the weight of her gaze, not as a ruler, but as someone curious, someone searching. Finally, she spoke again. "The trials will begin soon. If humanity wishes to prove itself, you must take part." Ethan frowned. "Trials? Ceremonial tests," she explained. "They measure wit, courage, and truth. No outsider has ever taken them. But if you succeed, you will show the galaxy that humans are more than words. And if I fail?" Liara's eyes darkened slightly. "Then humanity will be remembered as weak, and your people may never rise beyond being seen as children." Ethan stood silent. The choice was heavy, but he knew there was no avoiding it. The moment she asked that question in the hall, the path had already begun. He met her gaze. "Then I'll face the trials." Liara's faint smile returned. "Good. I look forward to seeing how a human answers challenges greater than words." That night, Ethan sat alone in his quarters again. The stars stretched endlessly outside, but they felt closer now, as if watching him. He thought about Earth, about the billions of lives that had never stepped foot among the stars. They were counting on him, even if they didn't know it. Carla entered quietly, carrying a tablet. "We've received details about these trials," she said. "They won't be easy." Ethan nodded. "Nothing worth proving ever is." He looked back out the window. The stars glittered like eyes waiting. Somewhere among them, humanity's future was being decided. By his choices, by his answers. And deep down, he felt it. The question Liara had asked was no longer just about him. Married or single, bound or free, weak or strong. It was the question of humanity itself. And soon, the galaxy would know the answer. The applause from the trial still echoed in Ethan's ears as he left the ceremonial chamber. The council hall was quiet now, but the tension beneath the surface was thick. Some delegates whispered words of praise, while others' eyes glinted, with suspicion, anger, or envy. Ethan knew that surviving the trials had changed his place in the galaxy, but it had also painted a target on his back. Carla and Marcus followed him, trying to keep up with the flow of aliens moving in the corridors. "Congratulations," Carla said softly, her voice filled with admiration. "You did it. You survived everything they could throw at you." Ethan nodded, but he didn't smile. "It's not over," he said. "Some of them don't want to see humans succeed. Passing the trials only makes them try harder." Marcus frowned. "What do you mean?" Ethan explained what he had learned from observing the council. "Not everyone wants humans to be allies. Some see us as a threat. The more we prove ourselves, the more dangerous we become to certain factions." As they walked, Ethan's communicator beeped. It was an urgent message from Zeroth, the insectoid delegate who had been quietly friendly. "Meet me in the observation deck. Alone." Ethan excused himself and made his way through the gleaming corridors to the observation deck. The doors slid open, revealing a vast room with a panoramic view of the galaxy. Stars, planets, and ships moved silently beneath the station. Zeroth was waiting, his mandibles clicking softly. "You did well, human," Zeroth said. "But not all eyes see it that way. Some factions are already plotting against you. They fear what humans might bring if you gain Liara's favor." Ethan's stomach tightened. "What kind of plotting?" Zeroth's multi-jointed hands gestured toward the stars. "Sabotage. Deception. They will use your trials as an excuse to humiliate you or even remove you from the council." Ethan clenched his fists. "Then I'll have to be ready." Zeroth inclined his head. "That is why I warned you. Be cautious. Be clever. And trust your instincts." That evening, Ethan returned to his quarters, aware that shadows moved in. More than just the corridors of the station, he could feel eyes watching, whispers following him, and hints of danger in even the kindest greetings. The stakes had never been higher. Liara requested another meeting that night. Ethan entered the chamber and she was waiting, seated on a low platform. Her violet eyes studied him with intensity. "Human," she said softly. "You survived the trials. You have shown wit, courage, and truth, but the council is not yet convinced. There are those who wish to test your people in ways the trials cannot measure." Ethan frowned. "How?" "They will try to turn your victories against you, to twist your actions, to question your motives, and perhaps even to endanger your life. You must remain vigilant." Ethan swallowed. "And the only way to protect humanity is—" Liara's gaze softened slightly. "By continuing to prove yourself. By showing that humans are not only strong but wise. Some tests are political, not physical." The next day, Ethan was summoned to the council chamber once again. But this time it was different. The hall seemed darker, quieter, more tense. Delegates whispered among themselves, casting glances at him that ranged from envy to fear. Zeroth appeared beside him. "Watch carefully," he said. "Not all challenges will be fair." The first task was meant to be a simple demonstration of diplomacy. Ethan was to negotiate a minor trade agreement between two minor alien worlds. It seemed straightforward, but as he began, it became clear that one side was being dishonest, deliberately misleading him with false claims and exaggerated threats. Ethan noticed it immediately. His human instincts told him something was wrong. He paused, considered the patterns, and realized that this was a trap, a way to make him fail in front of the council. He decided to confront it differently. Instead of arguing or accepting their lies, he presented the facts clearly, calmly, and logically. He spoke of evidence, not threats, of compromise, not conflict. Slowly, the truth became clear to all present. The deceitful delegates had no choice but to concede, though their expressions were tight with anger. From the balcony, Liara watched with interest, though her face remained unreadable. After the council meeting, Ethan returned to the observation deck where Zeroth was waiting. "They tried to trap you," Zeroth said, "but you handled it well. However, this is only the beginning. Some factions will attempt something more dangerous. They may try to end your trials with accidents." Ethan's stomach churned. "Accidents?" Zeroth nodded. "Don't take them lightly. Even the strongest human cannot ignore those who wish harm. Trust your senses, trust your instincts, and remember, your courage can inspire many, but it can also make enemies." Ethan felt the pressure weigh heavier. He realized the trials were no longer just ceremonial. They were a battle of survival, not only for him but for humanity's reputation among the stars. That night, as Ethan slept, a subtle vibration in the walls of the station alerted him. Something was wrong. He awoke quickly, grabbed his communicator, and activated his sensors. Outside his quarters, a shadow moved silently. He followed cautiously, heart pounding, and discovered a maintenance corridor that led to the council chamber. There, two alien figures, cloaked and careful, were tampering with the chamber's energy systems. Ethan realized immediately that they planned to sabotage the council and potentially harm delegates during the next session. Thinking fast, he used his training in human improvisation. He triggered an emergency alert, sending a false signal that indicated a malfunction in a distant part of the station. The two figures hesitated, unsure of what had triggered the alarm, and Ethan seized the moment to confront them directly. "You don't want to do this," he said, calmly but firmly. "Step away." One of them hissed, but seeing the determination in Ethan's eyes, they chose to flee rather than risk exposure. Ethan quickly reported the attempted sabotage to the council security, ensuring the chamber was safe for the next day. The following morning, the council chamber buzzed with tension. Delegates whispered about the previous night's technical malfunction, though few knew the truth. Ethan walked to the center, aware that he had just survived another trial. One that no one would officially record. Princess Liara stood on the balcony, her gaze steady. When she spoke to him later, she said softly, "You have proven something today that no trial could measure. Your human courage and quick thinking. You saved lives. You saved the council's trust. And in doing so, you have shown the galaxy what humans are capable of." Ethan bowed slightly, exhausted but determined. "I only did what I had to. Humanity depends on survival and honesty. That's all we know how to do." Liara's eyes glimmered. "And that is exactly why you are special. Your people are young, your ways untested, but your courage is unmatched. Remember this, human. The galaxy may try to break you, but humans have a way of surviving and even thriving against impossible odds." Ethan felt a deep respect for the princess and also a growing confidence in his own abilities. Humanity had already survived so much, and now he realized even in the stars they could prove themselves. That evening, as Ethan looked out over the galaxy from the observation deck, he reflected on the events of the past days. Every challenge, every trial, every attempt at sabotage had tested him in ways he could not have imagined. And yet, he felt more alive than ever. He realized that the question Liara had asked in the hall, "Human, are you married or single?" was more than just a curiosity. It had been the spark that started a journey not just for him, but for all of humanity. And somewhere deep inside, he understood that the trials ahead, though more dangerous, would be faced with the same determination, wit, and courage that humans had always shown. For now, though, he allowed himself a moment of quiet satisfaction. Against every expectation, against every shadow, he had survived. And in surviving, he had begun to show the galaxy that humanity was not to be underestimated. The stars outside twinkled as if in acknowledgement. Somewhere among them, Princess Liara's gaze lingered, thoughtful and unreadable, watching the human who had surprised an entire galaxy. And Ethan smiled. He knew the next challenge was coming, and this time, he would be ready. The council chamber was alive with tension the next morning. Word of the previous night's sabotage attempt had spread quickly, though details were scarce. Delegates from every corner of the galaxy whispered to one another, their eyes darting to the human diplomat Ethan Ward. Some were curious, some doubtful, and others openly suspicious. Ethan felt the weight of their gazes. He had survived 3 trials and foiled a sabotage attempt, but he knew that this was only the beginning. The Council's final session would decide whether humanity had truly earned a place among the galaxy's most respected civilizations. Princess Liara stood at the balcony above, her violet eyes steady and unreadable. She had guided him through the trials with subtle encouragement and sharp observations, and now she watched as the ultimate judgment would be made. The chamber doors opened, and the council session began. The speaker, a tall, crystalline being, named Therion, addressed the assembly. Delegates, the human has passed all known trials, but the final decision is not ours alone. We must consider whether humanity, a young and untested species, can truly be trusted as an ally in galactic affairs. Murmurs spread. Some delegates nodded in agreement, while others shook their heads. Many glanced at Ethan, some with fear, some with admiration. The room was a mixture of tension and anticipation. Ethan stood calmly at his place, his posture straight, his mind focused. He knew that the final test was not physical or logical, but a test of human integrity, leadership, and courage, the qualities that had always defined humanity. Princess Liara descended from her balcony, her presence commanding silence. She approached Ethan, her voice soft yet clear. "Human, you have survived trials of wit, courage, and truth, but the galaxy still watches. Some will challenge you, some will doubt you. Today you must speak not only for yourself, but for all of humanity." Ethan drew a deep breath. He thought about Earth, about the people who had built civilizations, fought for survival, and reached the stars despite impossible odds. He thought about the countless lives that had never left the planet, but had given him the courage to stand before these alien civilizations. When he spoke, his voice carried across the chamber. "Delegates, leaders, and citizens of this council, I stand before you not as one human, but as a representative of a species that has always faced challenges greater than itself. We have survived famine, war, disease, and countless disasters. We have built societies, explored oceans, and now we reach for the stars. And in every step we have learned that courage, truth, and cooperation are stronger than fear, lies, or domination." The chamber grew quiet. Every alien delegate listened, some leaning forward, some tilting their heads in curiosity. Ethan continued, "We are young among the stars, yes, but we are determined. We may make mistakes, but we learn from them. We may be new to galactic politics, but we understand the value of trust and alliance. And we come to you not to conquer, not to demand, but to join, to cooperate, and to grow alongside you. Humanity seeks friendship, partnership, and a chance to contribute to the greater galaxy." He paused, letting the weight of his words settle. Some delegates whispered among themselves, impressed by his sincerity. Others looked uncertain, unsure if they could trust a species so new to interstellar politics. Princess Liara's eyes, however, held something more. Her expression softened, and for a moment, she looked less like a ruler and more like someone who understood the meaning behind his words. Ethan took one final step. "The question asked of me when I first arrived was simple. Are you married or single?" At first I did not understand, but now I see that it was never about me personally. It was about humanity itself. Are we bound by fear, or are we free to choose our path? Are we weak, or are we strong? And today, I answer, not as one human, but as a voice for my people. We are free, we are strong, and we are ready. The chamber erupted in murmurs. Some delegates cheered quietly while others argued among themselves. Ethan held his ground, knowing that his words had already begun to change perceptions. Princess Liara stepped forward, her voice cutting through the chatter. "Enough," she said firmly. Silence fell immediately. The human has spoken with truth and courage. His words reflect the spirit of his people. Let it be known that humanity has proven itself worthy of trust, alliance, and respect. Gasps filled the chamber. Some delegates exchanged uneasy glances, realizing that they could not ignore the human diplomat's accomplishments and the power of his words. Therion, the crystalline speaker, raised his voice. Let the vote be held. Shall humanity be granted full recognition as a member of the council? One by one, delegates voiced their support. Some were hesitant at first, then slowly convinced by Ethan's unwavering demeanor and clear message. Others, who had doubted humanity's abilities, nodded in respect. Finally, the vote was unanimous, or nearly so. Humanity had been accepted. After the vote, the council erupted in applause. Delegates from multiple species approached Ethan, some to congratulate him, others to shake hands, or the equivalent forms of greeting in their culture. He felt a strange mixture of exhaustion and exhilaration. He had not only survived the trials, but had also earned humanity's place in the galaxy. Princess Liara approached him last. Her expression was calm, her violet eyes glowing faintly. You have done more than I expected, human, she said. You have shown wit, courage, and truth, and your words have carried the spirit of your people into the hearts of the galaxy. Ethan bowed respectfully. Thank you, Your Highness, I only spoke what I knew to be true. Liara smiled faintly. And that is why humans are remarkable. You do not follow tradition blindly, nor do you fear the unknown. You face it. You shape it, and you survive. Ethan's lips curved into a small smile. I hope humanity continues to live up to that standard. She stepped closer, her voice softer, almost curious. And tell me, human, are you still single? Ethan laughed, a sound light and genuine after the tension of the past days. Yes, Your Highness, he said. But I imagine that is no longer the most important question in the galaxy. She chuckled, a sound that was almost musical. Perhaps not, but it is still an interesting one. Later, as Ethan looked out from the observation deck, he reflected on everything that had happened. The trials, the sabotage, the council, and Princess Liara's question. It all felt like a journey, not just for him, but for all of humanity. He thought about Earth, a planet filled with billions of people who had never known the stars firsthand. And yet, through courage, truth, and determination, humanity had proven itself among the galaxy's most advanced civilizations. Carla and Marcus joined him quietly. You did it, Carla said, smiling. You've made history. Ethan nodded, gazing at the endless stars. No, we did it. Humanity did it. And this is only the beginning. The stars twinkled, reflecting the light of distant worlds and distant possibilities. Somewhere among them, Princess Liara's presence lingered in his mind, a reminder that curiosity and courage could shape not only one's fate, but the fate of entire civilizations. And as he smiled at the vastness of space, he understood something fundamental. Humanity had answered the galaxy's question, not with force, not with cunning, but with the qualities that made them truly unique: truth, courage, and the freedom to choose. And in doing so, they had won the respect of an entire galaxy. For Ethan, for humanity, and for the countless generations who would follow, the stars were no longer just a dream. They were a stage, a challenge, and a home waiting to be earned. And somewhere, quietly, Princess Liara's question lingered, teasingly and gently, as if the universe itself wanted to see where humanity would go next. Ethan laughed softly, shaking his head. Still single, he murmured. But perhaps the galaxy has bigger things to worry about than that. He turned back to the stars, ready for whatever came next.